Okay, looks like we've had a pause in people joining, so we will go ahead and get started. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for our virtual platform overview today. You probably know who I am, but I'm Becky Rogers, the almost finished president of Southern District for 2020. We are recording this. We've had a few requests from people who could not attend today, so we are recording this session. I have a few others who are going to help me give this presentation. Jeff Stevenson and Meredith Van Dyne are the co-chairs of our ICNO committee, and Sarah Wickland just had extensive experience using our new platforms for SDITE, so she's going to talk to us about some of their lessons learned. But really quick, what I want to do at the very top is I just want to double check that we have all sections represented. So when I call out your section, if you could just unmute real quick and just let me know that you're here. Do we have anybody from SDITE?
Yes, this is Laura Beth. I'm here.
Great, thanks, Laura Beth. What about Deep South?
This is Prashant. I'm here.
Oh, hey, Prashant. All right, what about Georgia?
Yep, we're here.
Great. Let's see. Kentucky?
We're here. I'm Erin Lammers.
Hey, Erin. So I'm trying to do these off the top of my head alphabetically. I should know them by now. North Carolina.
Yes, we've got a few of us.
Okay, great. South Carolina.
Yeah, this is Dylan Turner.
Hey, Dylan.
Hey.
Tennessee. Any Tennessee?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay, and what about Virginia?
Yep, Christine and Catherine are here.
Wonderful. I think that's all the sections. Did I miss any? Okay, great. Well, we're going to go ahead and start going through the presentation. We're going to hold the questions until the end, but there is a chat room down at the bottom of your screen. You can go to the chat box and type in questions or comments throughout, but we may actually answer some of your questions throughout the overview. So we're going to hold the questions till the end, but we'll go ahead and get started. So Jeff, if you want to switch to the next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to start just real quick with some background on why we're doing this. Why did we need shared virtual platforms? Well, as everyone knows, this has been a very unusual year. And back in early summer, I believe, ITE came out with a recommendation to cancel all in-person meetings for the rest of 2020. I've not seen any guidance beyond 2020 at this point, but I imagine it will probably be coming, at least for the very beginning of the year. Also, government restrictions on group gatherings, so we could not meet in large groups anymore. A lot of employers put travel restrictions on their employees, so they weren't allowed to go anywhere. And then just the cost of platform subscriptions in general. And so based on all of this, we started noticing as a district that a lot of sections, embrace the virtual meetings, and we're doing this either through borrowing virtual platforms from employers and or partner organizations. And I know one or two of you did actually purchase some subscriptions, but the vast majority of our sections did not have their own subscriptions. So Southern District saw this need and decided there's something we can do to help with this. Next slide, please. So what we did to select what we would purchase, we started out by polling the sections, and thank you to all of you who completed that poll, but we polled the sections to identify what you would use the virtual platforms for. You know, what features would you like? What kind of meetings would you use it for? And while we were waiting on the results of that poll, we also performed research on all different virtual platforms. And I want to thank the ICNO committee for all their work with that. We also interviewed ITE personnel on their experiences with virtual platforms, especially since they had held their big annual meeting online. And so we interviewed them. The executive committee discussed a lot of different options, and we ended up selecting instead of just selecting one virtual platform, as was our original plan, we ended up selecting a menu of platforms that meets everything that everybody wanted. So hopefully, in one of the things we picked, it should do everything that you want it to do. And I'll go through those in a minute. And then we actually purchased the licenses. We purchased one on November 6th and the other one on November 9th of this year. So, Okay, so what are some of the things that sections wanted to be able to use virtual platforms for? I just put a listing here: board meetings, business meetings, webinars, technical sessions, committee meetings, traffic bowls, award ceremonies, social events, vendor exhibits. Every single one of these has been done somewhere. So we know that all of these are possible, and there may be other things that we didn't even think of that you could use these for, but we just wanted to go ahead and list a bunch of things just to show you some of the different applications that these can be used for. Next. So what did we purchase? So first we purchased Zoom Webinar and Zoom Meeting. These were two separate purchases. Zoom Webinar, we currently have a 1-year subscription. It'll expire November 8th of 2021. There is a good possibility that if people are using it, that it could be renewed, because the executive committee, we don't see virtual meetings going away even after, COVID restrictions are lifted. We figure there's still a lot of applications for virtual meetings. And so we see this being something the district will continue to offer. It's just a matter of whether we continue to offer everything that we've purchased. We'll just have to wait and see what's being used the most. But anyway, our Zoom webinar subscription, you can have up to 500 attendees and up to 100 panelists. And we'll go through some more details of what's offered in that platform shortly. We also purchased a 1-year subscription to Zoom Meeting that expires the same time as the Zoom webinar, and you can have up to 100 participants in a meeting. Now, as of now, we've only purchased one organizer, which basically means that you cannot run both Zoom webinar and Zoom Meeting at the same time under that same organizer. Now, there is an option to purchase additional organizers. We have chosen not to do that at this time, but we will discuss it on a case-by-case basis. There's still some things to figure out on the district end there. But I guess we'll kind of wait and see what kind of needs we have. I know now that we're doing the Wilmington meeting virtually, we will almost definitely have to purchase additional organizers for that, because we will run concurrent technical sessions for that. But again, we still need to figure out how that'll be financed, because in our budget for this next year, we just put in for one organizer. So we need to figure out whether adding organizers is something that the district would pay for, or if the section would pay for. We just haven't figured all that out yet. And then the other things that we purchased is we purchased a GoToWebinar subscription. This is the platform that ITE used for their meeting, and we felt like it did a lot of the things that ITE uses for meetings, that Southern District and sections would also use the same type of things. And so we got a month-to-month subscription for this one right now. And the main reason we only got month-to-month is because when we did our survey, we learned that none of the sections had used this. And so it was unfamiliar. And so we were kind of worried that people wouldn't jump on it and use it. So we didn't want to purchase too much. So we just got a month-to-month right now. The executive committee has approved up to 3 months to start with, which will expire February 5th. I do suspect we will extend that at least through the annual meeting and possibly beyond if, and I will tell you, Cindy did put it into her budget for next year to extend it through the year, but whether or not that actually happens depends on if it's being used. But GoToWebinar offers up to 500 participants. And then a GoToMeeting subscription came with the GoToWebinar subscription for free. And so again, it also has the same 3 months and up to 150 participants who can participate in a GoToMeeting. Again, we only got one organizer. Similar to Zoom, GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting cannot be run concurrently, and additional organizers will be considered on a case-by-case basis. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to kind of talk through some of the specifics of the platforms.
All right, thanks, Becky. So what I'm going to do over these next couple of slides is talk a little bit about some of the capabilities and limitations of both Zoom and GoTo. This first slide will be related to the different meeting platforms, and then the next slide will be related to the different webinar platforms. I'm not going to read these line by line. I may kind of more focus on the one where one offers one and the other doesn't. But the standard features that you would kind of expect out of a virtual meeting platform are there for pretty much most of them. And I am seeing some input come in through the chat. So definitely, if there are things we don't know everything about these. So if there are things that you have encountered through your experiences, please share those in the chat box. We've got a good one in there right now. So I would encourage everybody to continue to share those little tidbits, because we'll be putting together, some sort of a summary of all this to share with everybody. But as far as the meetings go, GoTo meeting doesn't appear to have live chat, polling, and breakout room options, and that's something that we've that gets utilized pretty good in Zoom meeting, in the Zoom meeting platform. But both sets of meetings can be recorded. You can get reporting from both sets of meetings, screen sharing. Like I said, the obvious things that you would expect, and I'm sure that many of us have utilized and seen in meetings. I would say meetings is probably the most popular virtual platform environment that all of us have been in through the course of our daily business. Well, next we have the webinar packages, a little bit more robust, more set up for presentations, panel discussions, things of that nature. And, we didn't know what we didn't know when we started doing the webinars. So there were some features that we discovered as we were kind of getting into this process. So admittedly, this is probably the platform that we stand to learn the most in as we continue to use it. But one thing that, there's a couple of differences listed here, the live chat for GoToWebinar, pre-recorded events in Zoom webinar. I know that you can pre-record and publish those through GoToWebinar. I know that ITE did that for the annual international annual meeting, virtual meeting. And then a post-event link survey. I don't know that we have dove into that too much, or tried to look at that, but again, a lot of the things that you would expect to have in a virtual meeting environment from an attendee standpoint and from a organizer, host standpoint, panelist standpoint, pretty similar. And again, this information will be shared later. So lots of different features from both platforms. So we did get to try this out pretty quick turnaround from making the purchases and getting everything set up to our first use of the meeting platforms. North Carolina section had their virtual annual meeting scheduled for the Monday through Wednesday week after we actually made the purchases. So so we were very eager to learn, and just a lot of it was fresh in our head as we were reviewing the options and looking through the features and things of that nature. So so it was kind of good, in my mind, that we were able to put this to use pretty quickly. It was a good case study because larger section, more members. They had concurrent technical sessions, which required us to run 2 virtual meeting platforms concurrently. So through coordination with North Carolina section, it was decided that we would use, or they would use, both GoToWebinar and Zoom meeting, and actually get their membership and the organizers and facilitators of the meeting to provide input on their experiences with both, which will be shared in the next slide. Sarah will come in and talk about that. We did actually have a conflict on the Monday of the meeting. Southern District's year-end board meeting was the same day as the opening day of the North Carolina section annual meeting. So Southern District had to use the Zoom platform for our meeting on that day. Nick Site used GoToWebinar for the opening session and one of their technical sessions. And then they had another Zoom account that they had access to use for their other concurrent technical session. And then on Tuesday, they used both. And then Wednesday, they had a single technical session and elected to use Zoom webinar for that. And I think everything went off, pretty well, considering the newness of this to everyone. But I'll go ahead and advance it to the next slide and let Sarah talk through some of their observations from using these, and then some of the pros and cons that they arrived at through their use of it.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, as he said, it was very soon as to getting the platform, so we didn't have a lot of time to figure everything out. So some of our, some of the cons on here might be things that, we just need to take a little bit more time and figure out the settings and stuff. There's the learning curve. We used the webinar version of both of these for GoTo. And this list was compiled. There's 3 of us that were kind of, helping run the whole thing and behind the scenes with it. And so we kind of felt that the GoTo had a little bit more of a professional look and better customization for the attendees, the different views, settings, and things like that. The recordings of the sessions would go directly to the organizers. Not sure if there's a way to set who, because we found out like each of us were getting different ones. So we kind of had to, search around and find who had the recording, but it went directly to one of us. It's easy actually in both of the platforms to shift attendees over to the panelist and organizer side. With the webinar versions of these, there's 2 different links that go out for the attendees versus the panelists. So that way there's kind of a wall between, so there's no worry about people unmuting and things like that. But sometimes some of the panelists will join with the wrong link. So it's easy just to click and bring them over to the other side in both platforms. With GoToWebinar, when you set up the meeting, we saw that you could actually assign organizers and panelists from the get-go. So that way, Jeff wasn't the one that had to start the meeting. He didn't have to stay in it. Like, we could set it up, or not set it up, but get the meeting going. Both platforms will produce an attendance list, so that way you have documentation for PDH purposes. And in GoTo, you have a lot of real-time stats on the attendees, so you can see like, who's actually, if it's the live window and who's actually paying attention and stuff. So, and then some of the cons for GoToWebinar, there was some confusion between, there's a question pod and a chat pod, and I don't know like what the attendees were seeing, and there was some confusion as to who was actually having access to the questions, because it looked like questions were only coming into the panelists and the organizers, and so like the other attendees weren't seeing the questions. And so that's one of those, I think, taking some time and doing a couple of test runs and stuff and getting to understand that a little bit more. And then once you set up the GoToWebinar links, it sends out a link that you then have to kind of go do like this other little mini registration where you put in your name and email, and then it sends the link to the actual meeting. So that was just sort of one more step that we didn't realize that had to take place. And then we'd set up the meetings with pins for security purposes, but when they get the registration from the little mini registration, it doesn't include the pin. So there was a lot of confusion of people emailing us and Jeff trying to figure out how to get into the meeting and what the pin was, because it was in our original email, and it's just one of those, again, being new to it, didn't realize that was going to happen. For the Zoom webinar, more people are familiar with the Zoom layout as we've been using that throughout the year. And in Zoom webinar, you can allow all the panelists to share with one click, whereas like in GoToWebinar, you had to do each individual one until it allowed them to share. And then you can control in the questions in Zoom if the attendees are asking everyone the question or just to the panelists. You can set that at the beginning. If you don't want the attendees to see all the questions, you can set that up. In Zoom, some cons of that, the recordings go into the Zoom cloud, which has limited capability, because I believe after, I think like 1 or 2 days of our presentation, Jeff had to go get everything down from the cloud and send it to us because we had reached our max capacity. So if you have, events like, our Southern District annual meeting coming up in April, like you're going to have, someone needs to stay on top of the cloud and make sure that, we have room to record the stuff. And then, but it also has to be, whoever our admin is on that, versus like with GoTo, all the recordings came directly to us. And in Zoom, the admin couldn't set up a host before the meeting. And so it wasn't until like the meeting actually started that he could assign us as hosts or organizers. So Jeff had to get all of these meetings started for us in Zoom, and then assign us hosts, and then he could leave. So it was a little bit, kind of felt like, more burden on him than it needed to be. And then for North Carolina, our DOT is still a little unsure of Zoom with a lot of the security issues they had throughout the year and stuff. And so it's not their preferred platform. And so that's something we try to keep conscious of. And then the organizers and presenters seem to stay pinned up at the top. Like, I think this kind of goes back to the, the better settings and stuff for how people can view. Because in Zoom, I feel like you either have like, the window of like, the speakers is either like on top of the slide, which is then covering some of the content and stuff. So it was like a little bit nicer in GoTo than in Zoom. But like I said, a lot of these are things that, no, we have a little bit more time. Like, it was a quick turnaround, but I think both are decent, but these are just our kind of initial thoughts of how our meeting went. So.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm Meredith Van Dyne, and I apologize if I missed roll call, and that was said previously, but my internet blinked out right at 11 o'clock. So I apologize, which leads me into lessons learned. It's not on this slide, but have a stable internet connection if you can. And I know that's tough for a lot of us because some of us might not be able to get into our offices. And if it rains real hard outside, sometimes my internet goes down. So this has been a tough one. I actually got access into my office when I was leading a Zoom meeting for another organization. So it took special permission and all kinds of protocols, but it was stable. So Becky and I talked with Linda and Zach at IT headquarters, as she mentioned earlier, following that IT annual meeting earlier this year, and they offered these tips based on their experience. So I wanted to share some of the bigger ticket items. We've got 2 slides of lessons learned, and these are certainly not comprehensive. We appreciate any input y'all will send us because, like Jeff said, we're going to put together a resource for everyone. So if you think of something not on this list, please go ahead and put it in the chat or send it to us via email. We'll get it all together. Something not on this list, but I wanted to say first off is the security of, if you're doing a Zoom meeting, do not post the link on a website. I was in a meeting for another organization that got Zoom bombed, and this was earlier in the summer. It was terrible. We had to just shut down the whole meeting because of somebody taking over the presenter's screen. So just don't put even if it's password protected, just don't post it on a website anywhere. Just send it to the people that you know, that you trust, or that are registered for the event. So the pre-recorded sessions and keeping meetings on schedule, those of y'all that attended the IT annual meeting, you know that it had a combination of pre-recorded and live sessions. The Q&A was live, but that kind of helps keep things on schedule. Sometimes, it's hard for some presenters, if they have a lot of content, to keep within that window of time. And there's not really a good way to, if we're in person, we can kind of, give like the hand signal, but on Zoom, everybody's seeing it. So pre-recorded has benefits of keeping everybody on schedule. And also with the videos, there's not always enough bandwidth to keep things running smoothly, but GoToWebinar is the best for that. In Zoom, it has to be run through somebody's desktop, and depending on the bandwidth of everybody attending, it could be really choppy, really messy. So we recommend GoToWebinar for that one. The breakout rooms for social events, this is only in Zoom, and I would recommend, based on a couple socials I've been in, maybe no more than like 15 to 20 people max. It gets awkward after that based on the subject of the social or the type of social. So sometimes people aren't very social if there's more than 10, 15, 20 people. So just keep that in mind as you're doing socials. There's one license per room or per session right now. And as Becky said, we could acquire more licenses on a case-by-case basis if needed. So just let us know. Each session, having 2 volunteers in each one is really helpful. Like, for example, if your internet goes down, there's at least one other person, or someone to moderate Q&A while the other person keeps an eye on how the speakers are doing. And I would also advocate for the moderators to have a separate sidebar conversation going, like on a chat or on a text message conversation on their phones, so that something doesn't pop up on the computer screen or ding constantly, where everybody, be able to see it. So if we could, thank you, Jeff. Practice, 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 y'all. The speakers need to have practice with their same equipment that they plan to use during the event if it's not pre-recorded. And the same setup, like the same everything. Some headphones are not really good for use. Like, I found out the hard way that the old style wired Apple earbuds with they're the pure circle earbud, not the newer kind. They have this tendency to squeal when you're talking, and it is really awful. I was in a meeting and people were like, oh, and they're just not buffered well with whatever component in my laptop. This is the extent of my IT knowledge, y'all. I don't even know how to explain this, but the headphone and the microphone buffering are not working together. So some types of headphones are not really great for audio. So practice, practice, practice with the speakers and make sure that this is working. If y'all were in the transportation equity panel for the IT annual meeting, you remember this happening where one of the speakers had a problem and Alyssa Rodriguez did a great job trying to fix the situation. But it was kind of painful for a while trying to figure out how to get this one panelist back in while the others continued their conversation. So just some tips there. And then polling, last point before I'll turn it back to Jeff, make sure you're setting up the questions correctly. Like, if you want a single answer response versus if you want people, say, like, pick your top 3 choices of this list, there are a couple different ways to set up polling. So with that, again, I'll extend the invitation to y'all. This is definitely not comprehensive, so send us your thoughts as well. We look forward to hearing from you. And I'll give it back to you, Jeff.
Another lesson learned, make sure you unmute before you start talking. So we have set up some resources on the Southern District ITE website. Since there could be some demand for this, we wanted to set up a tracking mechanism for who all wanted to use the platform, what they were going to use it for, and provide a calendar to actually, show the dates where the one of the virtual meeting platforms are scheduled to be used. Just as a resource and a planning tool for when you may be wanting to set your dates for your future events, if you're wanting to utilize the district's virtual meeting platforms. So at this time, it's available for districts and sections. We don't currently have it set up as being available for student chapters at this time. So the type of information that you will want to have handy if you are going to make a request via the website is obviously your contact information, but really as much as you can tell us about your meeting, will help us help you decide if you need that type of assistance, which platform may be better for you. If you already have a rough agenda of your technical sessions, any social events, things like that, you've already got that roughed out, that would certainly be very helpful to have in reserving the dates and times. And realizing that we are stretched across both Central and Eastern time zones, we have the calendar tab and sort of plugged into the website to show both Central and Eastern. And we'll look at the website in just a second. This is a screenshot of it right here, but you can see the URL to the website. It's just sdite.org/calendar is how to get to it. And I'll pull this up in just a moment. Meeting registration and PDHs. I'm sure most of us in the online registration world are accustomed to using some sort of service, whether it be Constant Contact or Membership Works or something along those lines for Star Chapter for registration for our meetings. You can do registrations in both of these platforms and have that be your registration, which would kind of take one piece of the puzzle for a meeting, or at least it would consolidate it into one platform. What that seems to do, though, is if you have multiple sessions within a meeting, it would kind of force you into an a la carte type registration. Which there are pros and cons for that. Just wanted to make you aware that you can do registrations through these platforms. We haven't utilized that yet. Some of you on the meeting may have actually done that and can share your experience with that. But if payment is required, we would recommend a separate registration just to kind of keep it simple for your attendees. And then the GoTo webinar platform, you can see a sample of a PDH certificate that gets generated, that can be generated from the GoTo webinar platform. But at this point, what we've seen continued is these self-reporting form templates, or if you have certificates that you have a volunteer at your section, or if you've got some process to actually fully complete the certificates that show the PDH is acquired for a meeting. There's several different ways that the different sections have done it, but where we're kind of seeing things trending is the self-reporting form templates that are being issued by the sections, and I've seen that in other organizations as well. All right, so talk about some of the technical training and support options that we have on the table at this point. We do have some links. We have provided the links to both the GoTo and Zoom websites. They're online resources where you can go and watch tutorial videos. You can go and look at knowledge bases, forums, and things like that. If you have a particular issue that you run into, they're very searchable. I'm sure y'all have probably done that with other items that you had questions about for other things. But we've linked those to the Southern District website. As far as getting started goes, you can reach out to myself or Meredith, or if you have a representative from your section that's on the ICNO committee, you can reach out to them for those contacts. And we've talked about this some in this meeting, working to develop a resource team and a resource type of document or summary that will share a lot of the things that we're talking about here today, and things that we learn and those that are facilitating meetings are willing to share along the way, just so that we can make this a good viable tool for everybody for the extent in which we will need to be using it. We have went ahead and set up a e-community through the international website. So it's very young. We have 2 members at the moment, but if you want to join that group, hopefully it will grow and we can start having a place where we can share some of our experiences and knowledge, through the ITEE community. And, maybe we'll even get some members that come from international ITE or, other districts or other sections. And I think our vision there is just to, have yet another resource available that's kind of catered toward the transportation engineering, industry, as far as virtual meetings and needs and things like that. And then we mentioned the other sections as resources. They've already been great resources to us. As an example, Sarah being in this presentation and willing to share the information that she has about their experiences. So just real quick, that's the last slide with content, but I wanted to go ahead and share the website really quick. Hopefully everybody can see that now. But this is the sdite.org/calendar window. You can see the request form. You just click this top bar and it will open it up, and it will be all of the questions that we have in the poll or in the form. If you go to fill this out and discover that there's something that is missing from the questionnaire that would be helpful information for us to know on the front end, we're certainly open to suggestions on that. If we start seeing a trend of text that's written into these requests, maybe that will lead us to adding that as a question in the form. This is certainly kind of a ongoing working form, if you will. These are the resources, GoTo and Zoom, just two quick little links here. We'll certainly be expanding on this as we develop our own resources through the ICNO committees, documentation, information we can get. And then we've got the Google Calendar set up for Central and Eastern time. I did not put this event in the calendar, but if I go back to November, you can kind of see where we've got the SDITE meetings in the Southern District year-end board meeting is in the calendar, both Central and Eastern time. And then real quickly, the e-community from ITE, that's why I didn't put the whole link in there because it would have taken up the whole slide. So if you just go to community.ite.org and search, use that virtual meeting platforms, knowledge bases, or something along those lines as your search term, that should get you to it. You do have to log in with your ITE account to get access to this. I just wanted y'all to know some of the different resources that are available at this point. Recordings. As was mentioned, we do have limited storage in the Zoom platform. So it will let you know if you, or it will let me know if the Zoom webinar or Zoom meeting recordings have exceeded our storage limits. It will let you pass it. It's not going to just like cut off at the limit and not record anything. It will let you know and basically prompt you to kind of deal with that so that you can free that up to record other meetings. So there is the limited storage aspect to it. GoTo Meetings is different in that it will prompt you to download the recording as soon as the meeting has ended. And I found out that if you just close that box out and don't download it, if you're the one that gets that box, it will save a file to your computer to where you can go and open that later and download the meeting that you didn't download at that time. We were afraid that we didn't have the opening session of the SDITE meeting, and luckily stumbled across the file where it downloaded, or the prompt to download the file. There was a shortcut to that downloaded to my machine, and I was able to open it and download that. So we were able to find that. That's for GoTo. So as far as like some kind of guidance on recordings for district meetings, board and business meetings, the recordings are going to be stored until the minutes are complete. And then we still got to kind of determine annual meeting technical sessions, you know, how to deal with the recordings on that. You know, there's the aspect of the recordings, you know, how do you make that available to the people that actually paid for and participated in the meeting. We've got to work through the logistics of all that. Section meetings, you got to make a request for a recording prior to the meeting. The recording will be sent to the section immediately following the recording. And I talked about this on GoTo. The host can download the recording, and for Zoom, Southern District has to go and download that off the cloud, and they will share that with the section. And section meetings will not be permanently stored by the district. Recordings is probably one of the areas that we are, you know, that along with continuing to gain knowledge of features and settings and things like that. Recordings is probably one of the areas that we're still trying to, you know, work through the logistics and guidance and, you know, how to handle that probably the most at this point. I believe that is all of the content that we have for this presentation. So right now, I just wanted to kind of open it up to everybody that's in on the call to, you know, ask any question. We may or may not be able to answer them, but we will certainly take note of them and, you know, try to look into the questions. Any comments, lessons learned you're willing to share. And Becky, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything at this point, just to kind of recap the presentation and open this up for group discussion.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say earlier that I forgot to say is when we had our very first board meeting back in, I guess it was very end of January, early February, you know, the ICNO committee came to the meeting, and I had asked all the committees to share their goals for the year and their plans. And let's just say that virtual platforms was not on the list. So everything that they have done, that's kind of taken over the end of their year, but everything they've done as far as the research and the implementation and, you know, now helping to put together this webinar, that was all above and beyond what they were tasked with for the year. So I just want to thank Jeff and Meredith and their committee for all the hard work on this. So at this point, like I said, you can either type into the chat box or you can unmute yourself, but this is where we just want to open it up if anyone has any questions, or we are definitely not experts on this yet. We're hoping to get there, but some of you may have a lot more experience with some of these platforms than we do. And so if anyone wants to offer any suggestions or tips or anything like that, this is the opportunity to do so.
There's a question in the chat, Becky. Where will the recording of this meeting be located?
That's a good question.
I will download the recording of this meeting and save it to a link to it in the that SDITE.org /calendar page under resources. I'll figure out the logistics of that, but we will make it available to everybody. We have a record of everybody that attended this meeting, so we'll be able to provide confirmation on that.
We may also be able to put a link to it in the next newsletter, because that's coming out this week, isn't it, Meredith?
It is. We're planning on issuing it Friday.
Okay, so maybe put a link to that recording in there as well.
Sure.
Hey, this is Laura Beth with SDITE. I apologize if y'all already talked through this and I missed it. I missed a little bit of the meeting there, but what if you had two sections that wanted to have a meeting on the same day, maybe at the same time? Would that conflict? Would both of them be able to use the platform at the same time, or would we have to coordinate?
They could use, like, one section could use GoToMeeting and the other one could use Zoom. So that is an option.
Okay. Okay.
But beyond that, we're not set, like if 3 sections wanted to go at the same time, we're not really set up for that. But yes, we can accommodate 2 sections right now.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
guess you'd have to work it out amongst each other who gets which one.
Right, okay.
Whoever requests first, maybe. I see a question about any experience on hosting a traffic bowl. Yes and no. I don't know that it's been done within our district yet. I know Georgia was planning to. Anyone from Georgia, have y'all done that yet?
We're doing it today. So we did a practice run last week and we have our official one at noon today. So we just copied the international model with how that was done.
Okay. Is there any way when you get done with that, you could kind of send us just a quick little email, like a lessons learned type thing?
Yeah.
How it goes?
Will do.
You can just send it to me and I'll share it.
Okay.
But yes, this has been done at the international level, and Greg Judy in our district is a good resource on traffic bowls as well. So yes, it definitely can be done. It has been done, and sounds like Georgia might be a good resource here pretty soon.
Sravia asked, are we planning to record the traffic bowl? And Chris said, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and as far as our Wilmington meeting, and surely everyone's heard by now that that meeting is going to be virtual in April. We'll be doing all of these things as part of that meeting. You know, we'll be doing the district level traffic bowl. We'll have another virtual awards ceremony. Of course, all the technical sessions. And my understanding is that Nick's side is planning some special things also that maybe haven't been done before. But I've been given a few teasers on that. So anyway, we'll know a lot more after that. But yeah, all that will be a part of that meeting. And I also want to thank Nick's side, those that are on the call representing that that section. They are going to be the first section in the district to put on a full district virtual meeting, and they seem pretty excited about it and have some great ideas. And I just want to thank them for jumping in and doing that. And for those of you who don't know, because we went virtual, in order to not lose any money for our contract, the hotel allowed us to move the Wilmington meeting to 2024. And so we will return to Wilmington in 2024. But because of that, we had to change the schedule. And I had an article in the last newsletter, if you read it, that it listed the new schedule. But anyway, the way it works is now North Carolina section is hosting the virtual meeting this year, and then they'll host an in-person meeting 3 years later, and they were very willing to do that. So we appreciate that as well. But if you're not sure when your next turn to host the district is, be sure to check out the website. Jeff's got all that updated on the website as well. All right. And I don't know, did we mention that I see Chris wrote that they're going to put the traffic bowl on the YouTube page. But yeah, these you can live stream to YouTube and things like that. Both platforms allow live streaming. I think that was mentioned already. Anything else? I think we're pretty good on time. Did we catch everything in the chat box, Meredith?
I think so.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I imagine that there will be different articles and, you know, experiences and lessons learned that'll show up in future newsletters with more resources as they become available as well. But as you're putting together your schedules of meetings for, you know, the next year, please keep in mind these platforms. Now, you don't have to use them if you've got, you know, other access to other platforms that you want to continue using, Microsoft Teams, whatever else. I mean, feel free. We're not mandating these, but it is available. And, you know, since we're paying for them, we would like for them to be used. So go ahead and submit your request as you get your meeting scheduled. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be a great big meeting. It could be, you know, a committee meeting or a board meeting. I know a lot of boards meet early in the year. So like I said, in order to get your dates, go ahead and request soon by filling out that link that Jeff shared. All right, we'll give another minute or so, see if anyone has anything else to share. Jeff, Sarah, Meredith, anything else come to mind? All right. Well, again, we thank you all for coming. Be sure to watch, read your newsletters, and we'll be making this information available to you, including the link to the recording and a copy of the slides. So with that, I guess we can go ahead and stop the recording and end the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.